Good morning, everyone. Um, my name is Nadia. I'm coming from Rwanda, and today is another great honor and privilege to be able to speak to a great and distinguished audience such as this one about a topic and a group of people that are so dear to my heart, and about the work that we're doing at SHE, which stands for Sustainable Health Enterprises, and how we're empowering women and working with girls to address menstruation and menstrual hygiene management as a taboo topic, affecting their education and their participation into sustainable development. My voice is so low. Hope those people at the back can clearly hear me. Yes, thank you so much. SHE, or Sustainable Health Enterprise, is a social enterprise or social venture that tackles topics or ideas that are overlooked or sometimes considered as taboos. And for the case of Rwanda, which is where we are implementing our first initiative, the SHE 28, we are addressing menstruation and menstrual hygiene management as a taboo topic, as I mentioned, that is causing girls to miss their school or their work due to a natural phenomenon that they cannot escape. And the way we're doing it through health education, but also through business, where we're working with communities to develop sanitary pads from raw material that's plenty available in Rwanda, which are banana fibers. And before I go into the how and where and with who we do it, I would like first of all to mention or highlight to you how we came up to decide that this was a global and economic challenge to the developing world, but also to women in particular. In 2008, towards 2009, we carried out a research with 500 girls and women in Rwanda, and have discovered that MHM, which is menstrual hygiene management, was still a taboo subject. No one wants to tell you about what's happening to you because first, it's coming from a body part that no one wants to mention, sex, and second is blood. So talking about something happening from your sex has a connotation of, inciting girls to sexuality and, motivating them to go and exploit some other ideas that people think are true, which definitely is not the case, but a way of hiding the truth of what is happening. So that has caused women and girls to miss up to 50 days of their school or work per year, due to the myth and the taboos and the beliefs that are associated to the silence around the topic, but also the fact that pads are very expensive to some communities in the developing world, where in the case of Rwanda, a packet of 10 is costing around $1, an amount that most families can't afford per month, and an amount that people consider a wastage if you happen to buy pads or you happen to buy a material that will be used on dirty blood. So that's the perception, not only in Rwanda, but in most of the developing world. This has resulted into the usage of unsanitary materials, such as cloth, toilet papers. In some parts of India, people use tree leaves or cow dung. Don't ask me how they do it, but research has shown that such materials are being used. You can only imagine being in such a situation and being asked to go to school or go to work and stay there for hours and hours. We have also discovered that wash infrastructures were a challenge. What I mean by wash is water supply, sanitation, and hygiene, which are also other components that are not allowing girls and women to properly manage their menses or hygienically take care of themselves during such period of the month. These were not just facts or discoveries or data, but to us it meant more in terms of development, the sustainable development that we're fighting for in the developing world, and yet leaving the other parts of our community, which are women, behind. I gave an example of the case of Rwanda. We have almost 4.8 million of women who are the reproductive age, and 650,000 of them at the menstruating age, which is between 10 and 14 years old. And if we count the days that they miss work and school, we estimate a loss of around $215 per year per female, and a potential loss in GDP of millions, of hundreds of millions of dollars that you can see on the screen. And this is really a very, it has a very big impact on their families, their communities, and definitely on the whole country. So in order to address this challenge with Sustainable House Enterprises, we thought of a model that has four main components or pillars, which are business, partnership, education, and policy, to instigate different changes, be it at the ministerial level or NGO levels or other multi-sectoral sectors that we might think of. But again, as I mentioned, we are social enterprise. We believe in investment. We are not donating, we are not doing charity, but we are working with the community, exploiting their potentials, and using the local available materials, such as banana fibers, to produce a very dear product such as sanitary pads. And this has taken us, to develop such a model has taken us almost 3 years, because we wanted to leave something that will sustain itself once, for example, we decide to scale up and go into India and she does no longer exist in Rwanda. Is the community going to, carry on and address this same challenge for generations and generations to follow? So that's our model. And our holistic approach is to help women jumpstart their own businesses where they can manufacture the product, but also be able to educate, starting from their families, and break the silences and break the taboos and address the myths that are surrounding the topic. With this holistic approach, we have seen tremendous results. Jobs have been created, education has been improved. I'll give an example. Girls' education is really at the heart of my mission here on Earth, and I have seen it really improving very well. The example being that now the government of Rwanda has allocated a certain budget line for the procurement of sanitary pads in each and every public school, which is really a very big achievement that we are celebrating now. And as I'm saying today, as I'm speaking today, we also have like what we call a mandate to have in every public school a girls' room. A girls' room is an area where girls can go and easy themselves, can wash, can change their sanitary pads should in case they need to, can rest should in case they have menstrual pain, instead of just going and staying at home for all the 5 days or for the whole week, but feel like comfortable to go to school because they know that this time no one is going to tease them, no one is going to see their blood, and no one is going to tell them that they smell. So it's really something that we're celebrating and looking forward into having scaled up in the whole region of East Africa and what's not in the whole continent. And the fight is still going on. So most of the people here present were asking themselves about the sanitary pads that we are making, and they were like, are you sure this thing works? Are you sure this really happens? Yes, it does happen. We have a community factory, as I said. We are working with both women and men in their respective communities, and have, for those who have ever worked in Rwanda, know what we call cooperatives. We have gathered banana growers or farmers into different cooperatives, which are, I wouldn't say small groups, but gatherings of hundreds and hundreds of banana growers. And what they do, they transform what they used to call an agro-waste, the banana stem, into what we have as banana fibers, so these strings. And then these ones are taken to the factory. I think you can see the first picture. I don't want to turn because they told me that I should look there. So yeah, the first picture shows a woman at the community factory who's cutting these banana fibers into small pieces. And the following picture shows a machine that is washing them and cutting them more. And the lady that you see kneeling down there is solar drying them. And then it produces what we call the banana cotton, which is this. And then we're still at the community, and they're being wrapped and packaged into this eye-catching design. And again, this has been produced, or these were the ideas from the girls. So again, for those people who have ever worked in Rwanda, you can recognize the design of a packaging material, the cow dung table that we're familiar to. And then, men, you'll excuse me. I'm assuming that you're all ladies here. So here is our sanitary pad, which is also one business component that we are celebrating as of now. But this is not the final stage. Today, as I'm speaking to you, we're having different approvals that we are going through. We want to be approved by the Ministry of Health and the Rwanda Bureau of Standards. Reasons being, we want the community and Rwandan people to feel comfortable. This is a community-made product, chemical-free, eco-friendly. People might be asking themselves, is it not going to, stink banana? I mean, mixing banana and menstrual blood isn't it going to release, a certain smell? Is it really medical approved, and so on and so forth? So we want to make the Rwandan community really feel comfortable using it. And as I said, our program or our vision is to scale up in the whole region, in the continent where these materials are not affordable. So we really want to make sure that we don't bring the product on the market and, find ourselves going back and adjusting it. We better do it now and give them a good quality product. So our key dimension, developing these products were availability and accessibility. And since it's a product that is being locally made, we believe that availability and accessibility won't be any challenge in the future, because our product will be very less expensive compared to the national brands and the premium brands that are being sold in Rwanda. Acceptability is the key issue to us, and I will tackle a little bit about what Dr. Michael was saying yesterday here about listening to people. Some of the partners were asking us, why didn't you just come up with the Diva Cup? Most of women here know what I mean. And some of them were asking us, why didn't you just come up with washable pads? But our main key dimension or driving force was, are the women and the girls going to accept this product? So that's why we worked with them and asked them what they want and how do they think this can work in their communities. So going back to the washable pads, and I mentioned that we still have wash facilities challenges, this would have been an additional challenge to the community, because we'll be asking them to wash them up, yet we will have not improved the water supply and the hygiene infrastructures in their respective communities. And the Diva Cup, again, for people who have worked in Africa or in the developing world, you know that inserting a material into your sex has another connotation, has another interpretation. So we worked with the community to see what products should they accept to work with. The Sheet 28 has a lot of things that are happening, and I said it first, we are planning to scale up in the region, and these are the amount of pads that we're looking forward into producing. We are so far working with 10 schools. We have trained teachers who are going to train their students. We are developing IEC materials. We are trying to launch up our wholesale model with the business component, but also the retail model. But are also planning by 2017 to have a replicable blueprint model and to have reached 250 girls, created 1,200 jobs, and have 15 profitable franchises that will be perfectly working in Rwanda. The key insight, we have learned a lot during this whole trajectory to where we are today. And one is what I mentioned earlier. We have put girls and women at the center of our design. And we are sure that once the product is out, then the uptake will be very high. And we have used the local solutions and the local available assets, which makes our products very affordable and less expensive, but also has created a whole chain of new markets and incremental income to the farmers and the communities in general. And we have really captured our best practices for scale and for call upon involvement of the government and some other agencies by showing the real facts of what we're doing is bringing on board. The 10 schools have tested our pads and have seen how impactful they are. Our education model has really been, breaking the silence in the schools. Teachers are really claiming to the government, to the Ministry of Education, to really, replicate the trainings to other schools. So capturing the best practices is one thing that we believe is very crucial towards global health or bringing impact to the communities. The last point would be global health or global health challenge can't be tackled by one single organization. So working across multi-sectoral partnership has been also one thing that we've learned and would like to really share with you. And concluding, I'd like to say that, sustainable health is a proof that social entrepreneurship is one drive to sustainable development. And I'd like to call upon your action point to start letting off the hand of donation and charity, but rather believing in the potentiality of the people that we're serving and believing that the communities where we are has different resources and plenty of resources that we need to exploit and just open our eyes and see around and make sure that we work with them and the local asset that we have to bring up the sustainable impact. So thank you so much for having listened, and welcome to the Micro Lab.